Hi guys, it's Richard at Backnall and Kirkwood. So just a quick video today to show you about the Umarex Colt SAA CO2 air pistol. So today we're going to run through the most common issues and basically how to replace them. So three things generally that we'll sell a lot of. So first one, complete main valve. Second one, just the green CO2 seal on its own. And the third one, the hammer spring. These are the three most common things to go. So what we'll do first of all is we'll do a quick run through. So the main CO2 valve, it actually includes the green seal already there, already fitted. So if your CO2 pistol is leaking up through the barrel or backwards, this is going to solve it as a unit. If it's just leaking back into the handle, you could just get away with just replacing the green CO2 seal. And the hammer spring, that one's quite obvious. So first thing we're going to do today is we're going to make sure the pistol's safe. So take the grip off, check there's no CO2 in there. Then we're going to, it's already half cocked, we're going to half cock it. And we're going to take all of the shells out, just so it can't be loaded. Again, just pop them somewhere safe. Just reset the hammer there as well. If your pistol's leaking back into the grip and all you want to do is just replace the green seal, you don't actually have to do much of a strip. So what you can do, take out the CO2 screw.
What's this working part?
So on this pistol, all you would need is a screwdriver with a 10mm end. You can slot it up here and you can unscrew the CO2 retaining collar there and then replace the seal. You can't do that on all pistols. Sometimes they've got a little notch stopping you from unscrewing that, but on the Colt SAA it's not a problem, you can do it. What I'll do is I'll show you that on this valve. So I'll show you what you're doing. We just have a valve removal tool. So basically this valve just unscrews. There we go. So you can see you've got the retaining collar and the CO2 seal that's in there. That one you're probably going to want to pick out a little bit if you're going to want to replace it. So it's so there's that seal out there. So what you're going to see below that is the piercer, and in the bottom there, that bit sometimes comes out, that's the filter. So when you're replacing it, you're basically popping that back like that. You take your new CO2 seal, and what you're going to do is that you're going to put the concave side down so that sits into the piercer, and this side's more or less flat, the bit that faces the CO2 bulb. So you're going to pop that into there. But what's important is also to make sure that that's seated properly right down the bottom, because if you try and put this CO2 collar back on, there's a good chance you're going to cross thread it. So you want to push that in with something and make sure you can feel it go past the threads and seat properly at the bottom there. There we go. So then once that's there, you're going to take your CO2 collar, you're going to pop that back on, and you're just going to screw it back in. So that's the valve all sorted there. You can see in the middle, you probably can't see, but when you've got one yourself, you can see that pip just comes up just a tiny bit. That's the bit that's doing your piercing on the CO2. So that one. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the valve out as if you're going to replace the whole thing. Obviously we're going to look at the hammer spring and we'll start taking the pistol apart now. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the screws on the frame. So we just need some small, like jeweler's type screwdrivers, Phillips head, these ones. And one thing people commonly do is they're trying to remove these two flathead screws, but these are just decorative. They aren't actually screws for the pistol whatsoever. where you're looking at on the first ones you need to remove is here, 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 and we'll go from here. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the front of the frame first, but before we do that we're going to have to tap out this tiny little pin here. See, don't have to tap the pin all the way out. See, it's there on the other side. Then we're going to remove the frame, front side of it. There we go, that little black screw that was being annoying, that one's still there, popped out. I can see the side frame's taken off. So there we go, there's the frame off. So another common part that I forgot is this one here, the index and spring, which people quite often lose. So I'm going to remove that one. And you've got your indexer there for the drum. Next thing we're going to do is slightly put a bit of pressure on the trigger, pull the hammer out, and the trigger unit, so that's the safety there, just drops out. You've got then a spring on top of this little trigger. There we go, so trigger spring, that one there off. And then you can pop, if you want, you can take your trigger out. There's another catch there and another spring. We're just going to leave them in place because don't need to get to them. And then next thing what we're going to do is we're going to remove this hammer spring here, which is quite often, well not quite often, but it is one of the parts that can break. Obviously if your hammer spring's already broken, it'll just come out dead easy. This one, it's not broken, but we're going to take it out just to illustrate what to do. And there's that hammer spring there. So next what we're going to do is remove the valve unit. So this one's held in by a few screws. There's one at the bottom, two here, and one there, and another one there. So hope I haven't got any. And that's the main valve removed there. It's just exactly as we saw with that one before. And we're going to pop that to one side. So from here you can see, this probably can't see actually, this tiny little spring here and a ball bearing that sits inside there, and that's what's holding your gate in place. I'll just pop that ball bearing out so we can't lose it. Okay, it wants to stay in place, so I don't think we're going to lose that. There we go, complete drum. If you want, take that bit out of there as well. And so the gates came out there, but you can see the ball bearing still in place. We're just going to leave that there and keep an eye on it. We might as well remove these two parts, the spring and the latch, so then we're done. So another not so commonly replaced spare, but one that we do stock and we do replace, is in here, just hidden here. I wonder sometimes if people don't replace it because they don't know it's there. It's this this gasket seal. It's made out of rubber, so it will perish with time, and that sits You can see there's a channel it sits in, and if you look at the back of your valve, I'll get the other one so I don't put my screws all over the place. You can see the back of the valve, you can see how that sits. So I forgot to say, if all you want to do is just replace the main valve, just as soon as that's out, you could have got your new one, whacked it in, didn't need to remove any air trigger system, didn't need to remove the drum, anything like that. So I should have said that at the time, sorry. What we're going to do now is, first of all, I'm going to pop that little ball bearing out so I can't lose it. That's the one that goes with that spring. Keep that in one place. Now we're going to knock the barrel out, and we're going to have a look, because some people like to replace the barrel seat. So what we're going to have to do there is, there's a little pin here. I'm just going to tap that out. So that's the pin out there. And then we're going to have a little wang around with the barrel. So yeah, with a bit of manipulation, managed to break what was holding that in place. So you can see, just drops out there a little bit. And then your barrel system. So spring on the end, and barrel seat on the other end, like that. That's it, we're not going to bother taking the guide there apart. Next step, we're going to put it back together. So, back together, pretty much exact reverse. I've taken it apart. So, barrel in, spring to the front, barrel into the barrel housing there. Just make sure it's popping through the front there. Barrel seat on. There you go, you can see the spring, which is what holds your drum in place. That lines it up. The spring sits into this little part here. Just line that up, and then the whole barrel just pushes in. And then you want to be putting your barrel holding pin in first there. So it's probably easiest to go in from this side. Yeah. And we're just going to give that a little tap into place. So next we're just going to put that other barrel tin and pin back into place as well. Just this one on the top. Let's pop it in from this side. It goes. Just going to tap it into place first. And then I can use a little drift just to sit it in properly. And that's there, all sorted. So next thing we're going to replace the drum. So again, just drop this into there. Line it up properly. We've probably got to put the gate in. Do that as well. There's the gate. And we'll pop that spring and ball bearing back in there as well before we forget. And ball bearing. And then that small spring as well. That's it, there we go. So next, I'm going to put the gasket back in. And feel how that sits in there like that. And then CO2 valve. And obviously put all the screws back in as well. So now we're going to have a look at the hammer spring and the hammer. So putting this one back together is always one that confuses people. Get a lot of questions about this. So a lot of people basically forget how they took it apart. They look at the holes in here and they think that the spring has to sit somehow in the holes. It doesn't actually. What it's doing, the spring, is it sits more that way around. So the opposite way around, the peg doesn't go through that hole. That hole's not for the spring. So we're just going to have a go whacking that back in. So this one's quite tricky even when you know where it's going. So if you look at your spring sort of this way on, you can see it's got one long leg, one short leg. Where the short leg is going is, I'll pull it up here, into this hole here, just in front of the screw. And where the long leg is going is just here, into this area here. So the way I do it is I kind of line them up. I make sure the short one is where it lives. The long one will probably want to sit on the top like that. And then I kind of just help it into the right place. So that's it there. Just make sure it's all seated correctly. And then if you want to, you can take your hammer, you can pop it on there, just over the top, towards the front like that. And then just make sure you've got tension, so you can see the spring there. So next, we're going to put together the trigger unit again. So we'll put this one back where it goes. Just watch out for that spring, because it will want to ping all over the place. The indexer, the spring's not quite seated in the right place there. I'm just going to help him in. That's it. Then we'll have a look at the trigger unit. See, there's your safety on the bottom. So safety just drops in. See, that's moving backwards and forwards when it's safe and unsafe. So I'm going to put the hammer on again first. Again, in that forward position. Take the trigger into where he lives in the hammer here. There you go, lined up. Something not right there. Trigger. There we go, yep. Yep. So it just needs to be set in the right position. Just there. And we're going to get the trigger spring. So, see, small end and long end. Just have to remind myself how it goes. So yeah, it goes that way around. Small end catches on the little notch on the trigger. And you've got to pull that end up and over that post. That's trigger springing. Just obviously make sure nothing's going to spring up out the way. Next, magazine indexer or drum rotator, whatever you want to call it. Pops in there, you can see how that catches on there and moves. And the spring that basically allows that to ping backwards and forwards. That just sits. And then that hole in the hammer from before, one end in there, bend round, and it just holds there. Just make sure it's all seated before you take your hand off it. That's it. Then, just in case, carefully putting the frame back on. And then basically you're just looking for everything to line up nicely, as it has done here. And then you can carefully just put the screws back in. So, big long one, that one's going in the middle. It goes all the way straight through. and the other ones. Okay. That's it. CO2 cap back on there. Screw ready to go. All sorted. So on our website, I'll put a link below. Got pretty much every single spare part for this. There's also an exploded diagram to the pistol. So if the video wasn't good enough, there's a diagram there. Might help you out a bit more. But that's it. Thanks for watching.